Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Seeds and Weeds podcast, brought to you by Small House Farm. Are you a gardener, a forager, an herbalist? Maybe you're just a little plant curious? Well, you've come to the right place. This is Seeds and Weeds. Howdy, friends. Welcome back to the show, and happy Autumn Equinox. Today, we are celebrating the first day of fall.
Happy Autumn Equinox. It's the season of transition, and we can feel it here at Small House Farm.
Absolutely. We got a great show for you today. We're really excited. We're going to be taking a deep dive into one of our favorite herbs, sage. We're going to be talking about the many ways that we can utilize this fantastic plant in the kitchen, in the apothecary. We're going to talk about gardening. We got some recipes for you. We're going to be exploring the many ways that we're going to propagate our herbs, as well as plenty of other autumn activities that are taking place here in our gardens. And we are going to hear from our friend Kristen Graves, who is going to be stopping through to give us some tips and tricks on how to grow our greatest garlic crop ever. Before we get into all of that, what is new at Small House Farm?
Well, right now is the season of seed saving for us. And in everything that we're doing really revolves around this harvesting and end of summer transition. The plants are finishing their life cycles. They're making their seeds. We're watching it happen. We're collecting at the right moments. It coincides very well with the bigger project that we're currently working on, which has a lot to do with seed saving.
And then on top of that, I mean, you just got all the Patreon boxes put together and shipped out. Those just went out in the mail, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, the autumn seasonal herb boxes that the Patreon members at certain tiers get. I just finished wrapping those up, and they have some really cool, unique products in them. Actually, two of the products I'm using packaging that I've never even used before. So they really were a fun, different, experimental box. So I'm excited to see what people think about that.
Yeah. For sure. I think that you did a great job. Once again, I think people are going to be thrilled with them for sure. So I can't wait to hear some feedback from everybody as they start to arrive. Speaking of Patreon, of course, we got to shout out to our newest members since the last episode. We only got a handful of them this time, but we are so thankful for every member in our community. But here we go. Our newest members. Thank you so much to Julie Canis, Dr. Sharon Perry, Sharon Varga, and Bonnie. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. We really appreciate you and all of our members that have been with us. Some of you have been there for years now. We truly appreciate all of you so much. You know, it's the support of our Patreon community that allows us to do so many of the things that we do here at Small House Farm, including the podcast. So if you're enjoying what you hear on the podcast and you want to support what's happening at Small House Farm and you want to get more great content and maybe these herb boxes and all this awesome stuff, please check out the community over on Patreon. You can find that, of course, on our website. There's a link down in the show notes or right on the Patreon website. It's patreon.com/smallhousefarm.
One morning, we wake up and realize there's a bit of chill in the air. We pour a cup of coffee and take our daily stroll through the garden, only to notice the teas of yellow, where just yesterday there was only vibrant green. Brilliant tufts of goldenrod begin to appear along roadsides, swaying in the breeze. Just as soon as hints of yellow overtake what once was green, our landscape fills with soft shades of amber and orange and deep red. Autumn has arrived. There are still many tasks ahead, but it's important that we remember to take care of ourselves. Brew some hot tea, sit on the porch, and just watch the wonders of the season unfold. Much like how nature is beginning to wind down in anticipation of winter's arrival, it's also time for us to wind down as we approach the season of rest and reflection. Follow the cues of the natural world. Sure, we might still need to scurry and hustle to prepare for what comes next, but it's just as important to take time to experience what's happening now. We are part of this seasonal cycle, and we need to be present in the moment to experience the greatest joys that nature has to offer.
And that was an excerpt from my book, Herbs in Every Season. That's the introduction to the autumn chapter. Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing that with us, because that really captures the essence of what we're talking about here. We're starting to wind down a little bit, but there's so many activities left to do. A lot of scurrying about. It's definitely on
just
a daily.
Just like the little chickmunks and the
squirrels that are stealing all our sunflowers?
Yeah, they've been getting into all the seeds.
But one thing I love about what you read there, which is kind of, I think I bring that up in every season, which is so important, is that even though we are so busy and there's so many things happening, that we take that time to acknowledge that and to sit there and be a part of it. You know, I think that's so important. It's so easy to get caught up in the to-do list and the tasks and the activities and all these sorts of things. And, that's nice, but it's so important that we take a moment to sit down and just be. I mean, the equinox is a special season. That's why we're celebrating it in this episode. It's a momentous occasion. So really taking the time to just appreciate that and being like, well, here we are once again. And what does that mean for us,
Because what does the equinox actually mean?
So equinox, it means equal. So on the equinox itself, we have an equal amount of day and night, perfectly 12-12. So the Earth, of course, is at an angle and moves around the sun, right? So it only happens twice a year, the spring equinox and then the autumn equinox, where the sun is essentially directly over the equator. So it splits right down the middle. Since the summer solstice, the days have been getting shorter and the nights have been getting longer. And now we're right at the point where it's even. Perfectly even. So from here on out, now the nights are going to be longer than the days here in the Northern Hemisphere. For our listeners in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the opposite. And this is actually the first day of spring for them. So that's really nice, right?
And we have some listeners in the Southern Hemisphere?
Actually, yes, we do. Quite a bit.
Wow.
We have quite a few folks down there. So happy spring equinox to all of you that are tuning in for sure.
That's awesome. Well, we picked a plant that represents this season really well to us to talk about in more depth today, and that is sage.
From the Latin, salvia, meaning to save or make healthy. Why would a man die who has sage in his garden? Now, there's a number of different species of salvia out there. And when we're talking about sage, we're talking about the common garden sage, which is Salvia officinalis. Now, in this species, though, there are a number of different cultivars, different varieties of sage available, one being like the broadleaf sage. So the sage leaves that you brought into the studio for us to enjoy, this is the common one. So they're long, narrow leaf. I really love the variegated varieties. They have kind of the green and white, the leaf. They're beautiful, but they're not as cold hardy.
No, we've had a hard time keeping them through the winter.
We've never once had them survive the winter, actually, here in Michigan. They've never been able to make it. But this common garden sage, on the other hand, is very resilient and very cold hardy. It's done well for us. We'll have these plants for, years at a time. One of the other things that I really love about sage is just it's so useful. We can do so many different things with it, right? It's medicinal, it's culinary. I mean, there's so much that we can unpack and talk about sage. So let's start with its medicinal uses, the way that we would utilize this plant in the apothecary.
It's great for soothing stomach and digestive complaints. So the words to describe that would be antispasmodic.
Antispasmodic, carminative. Yeah, so it's interesting to note that, I mean, of course, it's in the mint family, and many members of the mint family are antispasmodic and great for digestive complaints. And you'll see that we often utilize sage in the autumn, right? We're going to be using it in a lot of our celebratory feasts, the big meals that are coming up, where we're going to be eating a lot of food. We're going to be eating a lot of rich food. We're going to be indulging in many, many things. So having sage as an ingredient not only helps just with the flavor profile, it's delicious, but it also helps our bodies deal with how gluttonous we are probably going to be. Sage is also actually really good for memory, cognitive function, which is interesting because when we think of herbs for memory, we, of course, would think of rosemary. But rosemary is actually a sage. It's salvia. It's kind of a new thing. Just in recent years, they reclassified rosemary. It used to be Rosmarinus officinalis for a very long time. And then recently they've changed it to Salvia rosmarinus. So they're saying that rosemary is a type of sage. So, I mean, so that kind of falls in with the overlap in uses between these plants for sure.
So if you're looking to use it for those uses, especially memory or even stomach and digestive issues, a tincture is a great way to consume sage.
Yeah, absolutely it is, because it's just simple and fast to take a dropper full of it or add it to our tea. But I do enjoy a nice sage tea. Or we can make a much stronger infusion of sage. So we're going to take our leaves and we're going to load them into a jar of water and steep it, say, overnight in the refrigerator to get a really strong water infusion. And we can use that topically. It makes a wonderful mouthwash for gingivitis. Fantastic as a scalp rinse. You know what I mean? Of course, it's good for dandruff.
It's a cleanser. So, I mean, anything that you kind of need to clean and wash and renew, that topically would work really well for that. It has the same kind of concept spiritually, is what people say, that it cleanses and cleans.
Now, you'll often see like folks will burn sage bundles, right? Smudge sticks. But that's more often than not made from white sage, which is a different species. That's Salvia apiana, which is native to San Diego County, where your sister lives.
Yeah, that's cool. You can still burn a regular garden sage in a sage bundle, though. And we've tried it a couple times to make cool bundles. And that is a fun way to utilize, especially, you have so much sage. What are you going to do with it? Well, tie it all in a knot, tie something that could tie it all in a knot, bundle it up and burn it to not only get rid of germs in the air, but spiritual energy as well. So,
and it smells good. Now, let's take sage into the kitchen.
Yeah, there's a lot of common autumn uses for sage in the kitchen. Like, it's very well known in our stuffing and our Thanksgiving kind of meals and our squash dishes.
Sure. Sage also lends itself a lot to poultry. It's funny to think about how perfectly seasonal sage really is. And almost any autumn dish that you may think of, sage is either a part of it already or can be added to it successfully. And it's going to be quite delicious. As a matter of fact, you found a really nice compound butter recipe in Herbs in Every Season.
Yeah. Bevan's, newest book, Herbs in Every Season, has this cool recipe about compound butter, which was really simple to make. So in this recipe, we actually bake garlic in the oven and then take that one head of garlic, a quarter cup of sage, and some butter in the food processor. We say about a pound of room temperature butter in the food processor. Blend it up, and then there's your, infused compound butter.
Yeah, this would be really good. I would even put it, because of the amount of garlic that's in it, you could put it on bread and then toast it in the oven and make like an autumn garlic bread. Would be really good, or this butter would be really good on mashed potatoes, yeah, for sure. Or even mixed with the squash, you could bake some squash and add this butter to that, and that'd be really good for sure.
I also thought that a compound butter like this would make a really good holiday gift for people. Inexpensive way to use some of the herbs in your garden, and it would be a fun homemade gift for your friends and family.
I think homemade gifts are the best.
Yeah.
And if you happen to live in a place where you are milking your own cows, if you're gathering your own milk, or you got a raw milk share or something, and you can make your own butter. I mean, now to talk about handmade, right? So you're making your own butter, you're making a compound butter. I mean, that's as local as it gets. That would be a cool gift.
That's a level up. We're leveling up.
Make your own butter.
Another cool recipe in Herbs in Every Season was just the idea of fried sage leaves. And there's not really much of a recipe in a sense. It's just the idea of taking these fresh sage leaves and frying them up in some oil.
Yeah, just a little bit of oil in the pan. I actually had this at a restaurant once. They used it as a garnish, and I thought, well, this is fantastic. A little oil in the pan, and I mean, this takes 30 seconds. You throw the fresh leaf in there, 15, 20 seconds or so. You flip it over, so it just gets nice and crisp. Oh my gosh, it's delicious. And it looks cool as a garnish on a plate, but the flavor of it, I mean, I could just snack on these things, Speaking of trying new things, you found a couple of cool recipes to utilize sage in beverages as well.
Yeah, I'd be curious actually what our listeners, if they have any fun recipes they wanted to submit about using sage in our drinks. But one that really struck my eye was an infused apple juice recipe. So they took sage and cloves and cinnamon and kind of simmered it on the stove in an apple juice. And then it almost made like a syrup, because with a little sugar, I mean, you could use whatever kind of sugar or honey that you wanted. And then take that syrup and use it to make mocktails or cocktails with an alcohol if you'd prefer, and with a little bit of soda water, seltzer water, or some sort of sparkling water. I thought that sounded lovely. We're going to give that a try as soon as I get to the store and get some apple juice.
Or if you want to level up, press your own apple juice.
I don't want you to take that idea to heart.
Oh my gosh, I can't help myself. Now, so that sounds like I would enjoy that with some rum. A little rum would be nice with all of those spices that are in there. But even as a mocktail, that would be really good. So we're cooking the apple juice down into a syrup with these herbs in it, and then straining the herbs out and making this beverage. That sounds absolutely fantastic for sure. So we're going to have to get some apples to press.
Well, lucky us. I mean, apples are an autumn plant as well.
Oh my gosh, you're right. This is apple harvest season. Look, it's all coming together for sure. I'm loving that.
Okay, so now what about sage in the garden? I know we've touched on it here and there throughout, our conversation, but one of the best things about sage is that it's a perennial and just continues to come back and back each year.
Once you've got it established and it likes where it's at in the garden, it will continue to come back for many years. To me, that's one of the greatest benefits of these types of plants, is that once I've done the work work, then I can I can reap my rewards for many years without having to continue to do the work. So I do really love perennials, and this is a nice one. It's beautiful too. So it really adds a nice texture and color to the landscape. It's nice to do other flowers near it. Like this year, we've got some calendula and some zinnias and stuff that's near the sage, and it just really helps those colors pop. So it just looks so pretty out there.
I mean, sage has some gorgeous purple flowers that are just
they are really
striking.
Nice. They are striking. You're right. And sage is an herb too that we can harvest. Being a perennial, we can harvest it throughout the entire year. It's kind of nice to do it that way. Instead of trying to do a big harvest at the end of the year, we can do small harvests throughout the year and just do a little bit of work here and there, and then dry those herbs and let it accumulate. And then by the end of the season, we have a significant amount of it that we've collected, but we haven't put that much effort into it all at once. We've kind of spread that work out throughout the year, which is really nice to do.
You could also consider, saving the seeds from sage. It's one technique of its reproduction, but maybe not necessarily the best technique.
It's not the most effective, I mean, you can get some seeds out of it as the flowers die back. You can collect the flower stalks and you'll get some seeds out of it, but there's easier ways to propagate the sage. This is a great time of year to start turning our herbs into more plants, right? To propagate them out. It's early enough in the season that we can do that and still have time to get these plants well established before winter hits. So propagating herbs like sage is certainly one of our fall activities.
So there's 3 propagation techniques that we want to touch on today, and one of them is probably the most common is root division.
Yeah, and this is the easiest too. This is going to work really well for our clumping plants. So not necessarily sage, but other members of that family. So mint and oregano and thyme and those types of plants that sort of grow in a clump. We're going to divide the roots, right? Root division. This could be as simple as just chunking it off with a shovel. You can just take a shovel and dig off a chunk of this plant. Some of our clumping flowers like echinacea and that sort of thing, it's the same type of technique. You can dig up the plant if you want and then tear it apart by hand in 2 pieces. Or again, just dig off a chunk of it with your shovel. And the way that these plants grow with those root systems is that you can literally just separate it like that, and each chunk will have enough root and enough plant to survive on its own. So you just take your plant, tear it into 2 plants. Now you got 2 plants. So that's pretty basic, but it only works really with these clumping herbs. Other plants like our sage, rosemary, we're going to propagate them utilizing stem cuttings.
And stem cuttings work best on the tender new growth from the plant. So if we're looking at the sage plant, we want to actually take a little piece from the kind of the top newer area that's green and soft and younger.
Yeah, absolutely. As opposed to the woody part of the stem. And it's really obvious to see when you're looking at it. And you'll be able to find this young green growth at any time of the year. Really, in the spring, you're going to get a big flush of new growth, but even in the autumn, you can go out there and find that. So where the green new growth meets the woody stem is somewhere in there is where you want to cut it, in the green fleshy part, right above the leaf node. So where the leaf meets the stem, that's the leaf node. So right above that, we're going to want to snip that off. And then you just simply cut that off, and then we can put it into a cup of water. I like to strip the leaves off. Whatever leaves might end up in that cup of water, you don't want that to happen because they're going to kind of rot. So strip those leaves off the stem, put it in a cup of water, let it sit. It's going to put some roots out. Once you see the roots, then you can pot this thing up and you got a plant. What's really nice about this is you can take multiple stem cuttings. So I'll go to my sage bush or whatever it is, and I'll cut off 4, 5, 6 stems or whatever it is. They all go into the same cup of water together, and then they'll all start to root together, and then you plant them all up. And now I got 6 plants with barely any work at all. And again, I've got plenty of time to get them established before winter hits, or I can keep them in the pots, these little plants in these little pots, and bring them indoors and put them under lights if I want, and help them grow and care for them throughout the winter. And then I'll have a nice, robust, much larger plant that I could put out into the garden in the spring if I'd like.
Another great idea for gifts for our friends and family.
Who doesn't want a little sage plant?
Yeah.
I think everybody would enjoy that. Now, sometimes when people are doing stem cuttings, they'll use like a rooting hormone that they'll add to the water, which encourages these roots to grow. And you could do that if you like. We've also made like a tea from willow bark, which has many of the similar compounds that's in this rooting hormone. So it's going to encourage this root growth. So you can do that if you'd like. Just a quick tea made from the willow bark, and then add a little bit of that to the water. But some of these plants, especially in the mint family, they're kind of weedy in their own way, so they don't really need that. They're going to root just fine on their own. Just give them a little bit of time.
And if you're interested in that willow bark, actually, if you're a part of our Patreon community, our herb co-op offers the willow bark. You can buy it by the ounce. So something to look into if you want to give that a try.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of Patreon, that recipe for the apple juice mocktail with sage, we're going to put that recipe on the Patreon page as well, if you wanted to check that out.
And the last technique that we wanted to mention was something called layering.
So layering, and this is something these plants are going to do naturally. You can see the sage out there doing it. As the branches eventually, they get, they grow to a certain length, they start to get heavy, they'll kind of flop over and touch the ground. And every place where these leaf nodes touch the ground, especially if it gets buried a little bit, it'll set out roots. So you can lay these stems down right on the ground and put some soil over top of it. And those places that are buried under the soil will set out roots. And once that happens, then you can take your shovel or whatever and chunk that piece off, and it's going to be its own established plant. In a way, it's kind of like a stem cutting is what we're doing, but we're allowing the roots to set before we even cut it off of the plant. It's a really easy way to make new plants, and it really highlights how weedy some of these herbs can be.
Yeah, you'll notice it a lot with the mint family herbs for sure. That's how mint, you got to be careful about it flopping itself over and just continue to crawl along the...
Well, that's why mint gets out of control, because it's spreading by rhizomes underground and it's spreading by rooting itself as it flops over. But you'll see if you grow squash, watermelons, any of those vining crops, if you follow those vines along, you'll find places along the vine where at the leaf nodes, it's putting roots into the ground as well. And that's a way that these plants hold themselves to the ground and find new nutrients as they spread. It's the exact same thing that's happening.
Interesting. That's kind of cool. So we're doing the propagation because it's, our activities in the autumn gardening season. And there's a lot of other things that are happening in the garden.
Oh my gosh, so many things. Well, obviously we're harvesting like crazy, nonstop. I've brought in more tomatoes this week than I've brought in all summer, it seems like. So it's a lot of harvesting, which then means a lot of seed saving. We're cleaning up where the plants are done, like maybe our chickpeas and caraway and whatever. Those guys are gone. So we're cleaning up those parts of the gardens, whether that's to put that space to bed for the winter or to prep it for the next round of autumn plants they're going to go in, because there's still planting and planting that's happening. Spinach and lettuce and these sorts of crops that are just going out to the garden just now.
Yeah, there's a lot of fall crops that you can still have time to plant. So especially if you took the time to figure out how you can extend your season with row covers or little greenhouses, or there's a lot of ways that we can kind of extend the season a little bit and allow these plants more time to grow.
Yeah, we'll build little low tunnels over our raised beds, and that's going to extend that season way out, especially for these cold tolerant crops. We can keep them going for quite some time, which is fun because it feels like the season's winding down, but there's still so much planting we can do. One of my favorite things to plant this time of year is bulbs. If we're going to be doing, maybe people like tulips or whatever it might be, we're going to be planting our tulip bulbs this time of year. But for me, what really gets me excited is planting garlic. It's garlic planting season's coming, and that's one of my favorite fall activities for sure. We'll typically plant our garlic, mid-October, sometimes towards the beginning of November. We want to get our garlic planted about 2 weeks or so before a hard freeze. And this is going to give the garlic plenty of time to get established before that happens. So depending on where you're at and when your hard freeze is coming, when your winter's coming, you just want to make sure you get it in soon enough for that. And it's really easy to plant garlic. So you're going to take your head of garlic, bust it all up in all of the cloves. We're going to plant the cloves. Each clove you plant is going to become a head of garlic. So it's really cool. So you're going to take your cloves of garlic, and they're fun because they're shaped like a little point on one end. And you want to make sure that point points towards the sky. You're going to put your garlic in about 1.5 to 2 inches deep. Point up, put them in there. I like to put a little layer of mulch over top of it, give them a little blanket so they're happy throughout the winter time. And then come spring, after the vernalization period being exposed to that cold, the garlic is then going to start to grow. And then next year, you're going to have garlic, which is pretty awesome. Last year on the show, we had Kristen Graves on to talk about garlic. She was out promoting her new book, The Garlic Companion. So we had her on and we talked all about garlic, all sorts of different things about it. And she shared some of her tips and tricks to help us have the greatest garlic harvest possible. So we wanted to share those with you today as well.
So I actually have 3 top tips for planting garlic. First and foremost, you want to pay really close attention to the type of garlic that you're planting. So what I mean by that is if you're in a colder zone, you really want to look for a hardneck variety. If you're in a warmer zone, like zone 6 and above, you want to look for a soft neck garlic. Sometimes I find that that's really half the battle right there. It's not impossible to grow either in both zones, but it just makes it a lot harder if you're trying to grow something that wants a Mediterranean climate, but you live in Alberta, or vice versa. So that's my first tip. My second tip is to, if possible, source your seed bulbs as close to home as possible. So if you know a local grower, a local farm, maybe it's your own crop, just make sure that they're healthy, uniform bulbs that don't have any bruising on them or anything like that. And if you can source them locally, then it means it's already acclimated to your zone. Again, you're just giving yourself better chance for success. Now, the third tip is crop rotation. So this one is key. If you want a healthy garlic crop that's free of disease, free of pests, you want to make sure that you rotate your garlic crop every year, and then don't plant in that same spot for at least 3 years. And this does include other alliums like onions or leeks. So those are my top 3 tips for you.
And you can listen to the full episode with Kristen. We'll put the link down in the show notes.
There's also some other activities that we can do this time of year. We might want to get out there with some compost or some mulch in the garden. I think this is such a wonderful time of year to spread some fertilizer, some compost, manure, whatever it might be, out into the gardens. It's going to give it plenty of time to get itself worked into the soil over the winter, but it also saves me from having to do that in the spring. Right. If I can check some of these things off of my list now, that's really, really nice because spring is so busy. Also, this is such an important time to start organizing and putting away all of our garden tools, cleaning up the garden shed. This is a place where I struggle. I leave tools all over the place all the time.
If you do spend a little time now in the fall organizing and keeping them clean and together, that will really help you in the spring. And then what goes along with that is making notes about what happened during the season. How did the plants grow? What harvested well? What didn't do well? Make those notes, make those ideas and thoughts down on paper so that when you're making your spring garden, when you're planning your spring garden, that you have something to reference.
It's seamless. That's what happens. If we take these good notes now, and while the experience is fresh in our mind, then what we document becomes the foundation of our planning for next year, right? So this season, the season of transition, it will seamlessly transition into the next growing season. They're very well connected like that, and it's going to help future us do better at whatever we need to do. We're going to have more successful gardens, right? Because we've cleaned up after ourselves. We've put our tools away. We've made a plan. We know what we're doing, and we're ready to get into it. Autumn is certainly an exciting time. There's plenty of activities to do. It may seem like things are winding down, but it's not over just yet. There's a lot of things that we can do to make the most of this season, prepare ourselves for next season. This is the season of transition. It's one of the most exciting seasons. Definitely top 4 favorite seasons of all time. So get out there, my friends, please, and enjoy it. And happy equinox from all of us at Small House to all of you. Happy equinox.
Happy growing.
And that brings us to the end of yet another show together. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And thank you so much to Kristen Graves for sharing her garlic wisdom with us today. Remember, if you enjoy the podcast, you can always show your support by joining our community on Patreon. You can find a link to that and so much more at seedsandweedspodcast.com. This episode was edited and produced by all of us here at Small House Farm. And the music we're enjoying right now is Ranch Life by Edward Bikovitz. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Get out in those gardens, have a good time, and happy equinox.